Hello, this is Dean Phoenix with the next part of my stat maxing guide, and this is following on from the last two episodes. The first is where we learn to get the triple AP weapons for being able to defeat one eye consistently. And then the second we went over the Don Tombury trick and how you can get the spheres that you need to complete all of the grid and activate all the nodes by fighting Kotos. Now, after that, this is what we're going to be moving on to, and the first stat that we want to max after that is Strength. Now you can see here that this is the grid completed for Tidus, Waka and Rikku, and I've maxed the Strength, Defense and Magic Defense to 255, and that is a very crucial part of the stat maxing process, and Strength is the one that you want to start with. Strength makes everything else easier. Once you have 255 Strength, you do an enormous amount of damage. You'll be doing 99,999 to every enemy in the game with celestial weapons, and that's really important. Now you can see here that I've gone over the sphere grid and I've added in a lot of the Strength plus 4 nodes, and to get those Strength plus 4 nodes you need to beat Juggernaut. Now on the standard sphere grid, which is what we're using here, there is 19,400 HP, 172 strength, 150 defense, 142 magic, 124 magic defense, 1,260 MP, 174 agility, 18 luck, 124 evasion and 70 accuracy. And the reason that I tell you that before we start the process is you need to know how much is on the grid already before you can max these stats. So you need to know how many extra strength spheres you will need to get to 255 strength, and how many defense spheres to get to 255 defense, and so on and so forth. Now fortunately some kind soul has already worked that out, and I will link the FAQ, KADFC's FAQ, which is extremely useful. I'll link that in the description. But first things first, before we undertake any stat maxing, we want to know how many strength spheres we want to get to 255, and with the standard sphere grid we will need 20 extra strength spheres. Now this includes the one from Blitzball, if you got that, the one from Yojimbo's Faith that you can get for revisiting Yojimbo's Faith, and the 3 strength spheres you get from dodging the lightning bolts. So if you got all of those, then you've already got 5 strength spheres, so you only need to farm 15 strength spheres. So you can see here there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You can either complete the whole grid using the Don Tombury trick and then go back after the grid, over the grid, after you've activated all of these nodes. So say this was Yuna, you would go over the whole grid, activate all these nodes, and then go back over the grid because you'd be stronger then. Then you could defeat Juggernaut, which is where you get these strength spheres. Go back over the grid and use the strength spheres and activate them to take your strength up to 255. Then get a load of defense spheres and activate those, and then get 255 defense. But if you think about it, you're going over the grid twice. So what I prefer to do is to try and beat Juggernaut straight away. Now you may not necessarily be strong enough to do this, but he does have some quite exploitable features. So if you can beat him early, then you can get the 20 strength spheres before you start using the Don Tombury trick and going over the sphere grid, and that way you can use these strength spheres as you go through the sphere grid the first time, and you don't have to go over it twice. So that can save you quite a lot of time, and that's what I prefer to do, and so that's what we're going to be covering here. Now if you want to just go over the sphere grid once, just using the Don Tombury trick and activate everything, then go back over it with the strength spheres, that is absolutely fine. That's a simpler way of doing it, it's a little less confusing. But we'll see how we go, so see how you follow the video, you can do whichever you prefer. Now these are my characters after the Omega Ruins, and because I'd done the overpowered walkthrough, obviously my characters are extremely strong. So I had 166 strength with Rikku, 161 with Waka, 173 with Tidus. Now in order to beat Juggernaut, he does have a lot of HP, he has about 1.2 million HP. And he has a 95% resistance to Armour Break, so you're going to struggle to do damage to him because he'll probably kill you quite a lot of times before you can even inflict Armour Break. Unless there was a way that you could guarantee Armour Break regardless of resistance. And what you can do that with is Rikku's Frag Grenade, which is one of her mixes. Now you can use this, or you can use Auron's Banishing Blades, so either is fine. If you mix 2 power spheres or mana spheres, any 2 normal spheres with Rikku, it does the overdrive Frag Grenade, and that inflicts a guaranteed break. So you can see there that this is with, even with the lower stats, still doing an enormous amount of damage, and it's enough to take Juggernaut down. Now his first turn he will always use charging, and you can use that to your advantage because the first turn he uses charging, And then the second turn he uses Salvo, which does massive fire damage to your whole party and will wipe you out. But Salvo is also still a fire based attack, so he always uses charging the first turn, and then you can use Null Blaze, so that even if he gets a second turn you can nullify it with Null Blaze. So you can see that even if he ambushes you or whatever, he will always use charging the first time, and then you can just use Null Blaze and then nullify that attack, so that he essentially gives you 2 free turns. And if you have auto haste on your armors, then you will probably have enough turns to be able to take him down. So basically, use Rikku and use the Frag Grenade overdrive by mixing 2 regular spheres to armor break him. If he gets a second turn, so he's ready to use Salvo, you just use Null Blaze to nullify it, and that gives you more than enough time to kill him. If your characters aren't particularly quick, then you can also use overdrives to make it go a little quicker. So you see here I've used Wakka's attack reels, and because he has World Champion and he has decent strength and Juggernaut has been armor broken, it will still do massive damage and take him down. Now if you've watched the previous stat maxing videos, you'll know that I've been going on about the virtues of the Victor overdrive mode, especially with the celestial weapons and the triple overdrive, and this is what we're using here. So I've just used the Rikku's and Wakka's overdrives, but I need them back again. Now, they already have 60% of their overdrive back because they won the fight against Juggernaut with Victor and triple overdrive. So I go and kill any enemy that I want, so I can either kill a sleep sprout or something like that that goes down in 1 hit, and I get a weapon that I can sell, and I also get the teleport spheres for beating sleep sprout. And that has conveniently refilled my overdrive gauge, so I can just go right back to fighting Juggernaut again and use Rikku's overdrive and then repeat the cycle from there. So basically, you use Frag Grenade, you beat the hell out of Juggernaut. If it gets a turn to use Salvo, as you can see here, this is its second turn coming up, just make sure that you've used Null Blaze first, and he won't actually be able to kill you. So as long as 2 members of your party have Auto Phoenix to resurrect your characters after his physical attacks, and you make sure that you use Null Blaze to stop Salvo, you shouldn't be able to lose against Juggernaut, and you should be able to do enough damage to be able to kill him. So this is how a typical bit of farming would go. You guard break, like you say, you armor break Juggernaut and then beat him down, and then you're at 60% overdrive already. So then you just pick an easily beatable enemy, and you can use either Sleep Sprout, or you can also use One Eye, and so you can double up on getting the triple AP weapons for the other characters. At this point I had triple AP weapons already for Tidus, Rikku and Wakka, but I was beating One Eye because he also drops magic defense spheres, so I was sort of doing 2 things at once, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So whilst I'm getting the overdrive back to be able to farm these strength spheres, I'm also farming One Eye or Sleep Sprout and being able to get the rewards for beating those enemies as well. So you can see here I very quickly got a bunch of strength spheres. I'm already at 16 there, and that would have been enough for me because I had the 3 strength spheres from lightning dodging, the 1 from winning the Blitzball game in Luca, and the 1 from returning to visit Yojimbo's faith. So this is how quickly it can go. You basically just use the armor break and then attack reels, and you can take him down no problem at all, and then just repeat that by fighting these weaker enemies in between. So killing Juggernaut in this fashion, you need to get like I say 20 strength spheres, depending on which ones you've got throughout the game already, and then you can also get your magic spheres at the same time by fighting One Eye in between. Now the advantage of doing it is that you also can get these triple AP weapons from One Eye and sell those as well. So whilst I'm just showing a little bit of the demonstration of how I was doing this farming back to back, what the goal is here is to get enough of those strength spheres so that you can get to 255 strength, and again make all of the other monster arena creations easier. So doing it this way, if you can beat Juggernaut before you've done the Dontombre trick and completed the whole sphere grid, what that means is that when I was going around the sphere grid, I could start the 3 characters. In my case it was Wakka, Tidus and Rikku, which is the recommended party for a normal 9999 HP playthrough. I could start them all back at the same point in the grid using a return sphere or teleport spheres that you can easily get from beating Chimera Geist and Sleep Sprout respectively, and then start them up in one section of the grid that has a bunch of the empty nodes grouped together. And what I would do is I would just basically put in the strength spheres until I put in the 20 strength spheres, and then I would activate those as I went around. And what that meant was I was only going over the grid once, but I would very quickly get to 255 strength or thereabouts, and that's what you're going to see here. So you can see as I go into the items very quickly, there's 65 hours on the game clock if you saw that there, and if you compare to the save time I had after I'd finished all my capturing at the end of the Omega Ruins, that is only about 1 hour that it's taken for me to be able to get all of the AAA weapons for my main 3 characters, and then get all of the strength spheres that I needed to be able to get their strength up before I even started the Dontombu trick. So you can do it in whichever order you prefer, but there you can see 20 strength spheres, and that's going to be enough to make it so that when I've completed the whole grid and used those strength spheres, I would have 255 strength. And this is really key, because what it means is that you're strong enough then to beat pretty much all of the enemies in the game. And the other things you need after that, obviously you need your defenses and you need agility, but with high agility, auto haste and strength, you can beat a load of stuff before they even have time to do appreciable damage, so it's very useful. So you can see here, this is before Tidus has actually even started to go through the grid. And what you'll see is that as I go through the grid, I will bunch up a bunch of these strength spheres and be able to go over it. So I may do a link to a post for this video just to explain in more detail, because I feel it is like not an overly complicated concept, but it is a little bit, it does take a bit of getting your head around, but you can use these areas of the grid where there are lots of empty nodes and pile up a bunch of these stat spheres in the same area, so that characters can very quickly get a lot of one stat or another. So this is the node that I was going to return to with Tidus, Wakka and Rikku, because there are a lot of empty nodes there, and I make my way through the grid and activate these strength spheres as I went through. So you can see here, this is Wakka's turn. Tidus and Rikku have already been through the grid, and as Tidus and Rikku went through, I used those strength spheres that I've just won from Juggernaut and created these extra strength +4 nodes. So as Wakka is going through, he will actually activate these +4 nodes, and he will end up at well over 200 strength, and then as he goes around the rest of the board, the sphere grid, he'll just finish off and end up with 255. Now the advantage of doing it this way is mainly, like I say, you're only going over the board once, so instead of going around the whole grid and ending up at that 172 or so strength, you can instead activate these as you go around. And it doesn't just save you time for activating the strength spheres the first time, it also means that your strength is high enough that you can immediately move on to taking the other arena creations as you're going through that as well. So that is like a big deal, because it'll save you having to go over the grid a second time to activate the defense nodes that you'll be getting, and also the other ones like agility and everything else. So you can see here that Wakka's going through and he's going to activate a bunch of these strength sphere ones. Now just to reiterate, if you either aren't following what I'm saying here, or you just don't feel like doing it that way, if it's a bit overly complicated, that is absolutely fine. You can just use the Dontombu trick, go over the whole grid and activate all of the nodes and beat Kotos when you want, and then just activate them that way, and then go back over the grid and add these strength spheres afterwards. That is absolutely fine as well, and Juggernaut will be easier to beat, because after you've gone over the grid the first time, you'll have about anywhere between 170 and 200 or so strength, and then you'll be able to beat him more easily. So that is absolutely fine. But if you want to save yourself a little bit of time, you can do it the same way I did and do these strength spheres first using Armour Break, and then beating Juggernaut like that. Now another thing that I would recommend is, before you start fighting Juggernaut, you make a start on your ultimate armor, so that all your characters have auto haste, as I mentioned previously, and I'll have a separate video about the ultimate armors and what we do with those as well. So you can see there that all of the characters have activated those strength nodes, and now they have enough strength to be able to take on the other creations. And I will be going on over that in episode 4, as we talk about what other stats we can max before we move on to maxing luck. So you can see here, this is Tanker, and with the 200 or so strength, we'll be able to beat Tanker as well. and then that will get us our defense spheres, and then as we continue moving around the grid we can fill the empty nodes with defense and take care of maxing defense at the same time as we move around the rest of the grid. So I hope that was easy enough to follow. It's basically just as I was saying before, you beat Juggernaut by using Armour Break with Rikku or Auron's Overdrive, and then beat him down for the Strength Spheres. So thank you very much for watching, and please like and subscribe for more videos including the rest of this stat maxing series.